To session 1 of applicant tracking training for CBIZ EMS. In this session, we'll cover configuring your recruiting portal. The objective of this session is to get you to publish your applicant site. We'll follow that up with sessions on how to detail and customize the site even more to your company's needs. So to begin, from our home page, let's click on the Settings menu and go to Applicant Tracking. Once the Applicant Tracking Settings page loads, we're going to go to the Configure Recruiting Portal menu option located in the middle of the second green bar. Configuring the recruiting portal has 3 steps. The first step configures the applicant homepage. The second step is the applicant profile, and the third step is the publication address that you'll use to publish the website. So step 1, configuring your start page. This is the home page that applicants will land when they click on a link to come into the applicant site. The first thing that we'll need to do is select a theme. We have 12 pre-built themes that range from color changes to maybe graphic changes to just the layout of the screen. To try each, click on the theme and click Save and View, and you'll see a preview on the right-hand side. For example, here I've just chosen theme 12. To scroll down to the bottom, there are 2 additional items to set up on this page. The checkbox to enable the news component on the recruiting portal. If you check that box, and you'll notice over on the right-hand side of the page, in the bottom left-hand corner of the themes, there will be an About Us or a News section. A lot of users choose to put maybe a new listing or new posting of a job that you want to draw attention to, or maybe company awards or different recognition that you want to draw the applicant's attention to about your organization. The bottom part is the homepage message. When the applicant comes into the site, it's basically just a welcome message, familiarizing themselves with your company, maybe with the site. If you have any missions, values, or goals that you want to address, this is a good place to put that text. Okay. The second step, under step 1, is contact information. This will be displayed, and if you notice on the right-hand side of the page, in the middle at the bottom of most themes. This is contact information that when an applicant comes to the site, if they have questions about a job, maybe a question about an application they've turned in, this is whom in your organization that you want them to contact. It could be generic or very specific. You'll fill that information out here. And last but not least, if you were to enable that news component on the very first tab here, then this is where you would set up news records or items. And again, it could be any event, award, attention to a specific job posting. You would set up your post date. That's the date that you want to create the event, or basically the article. The display order, that moves it up or down, so higher priority. And if later you want to move it down but keep it in the list, then you can still just move it as a lower display order. If you want to deactivate it and remove it from the site, you uncheck the active headline box. Or if you want to make it active and push it out, again, it can come and go if it's something that's intermittent. Your headline is just a quick, and if you notice on the right-hand side, it's what's in blue. It's quick text to grab attention. The short description, again, over on the right-hand side in the preview, this is the small 150-character preview of what the article will say. And then the actual article itself is called the long description. You have 5,000 characters to put the story or any information in there. At the bottom, it'll show you all of the headlines or the articles that you've posted out there or that you have created that you could post out there. If you want to delete any altogether, remember we can make them active or inactive, but if you actually want to delete one, simply put a check in the box where my mouse is hovering now, and at the top click Delete Selected Records. So that's step 1. That sets up the landing page for the applicants. Let's move on to step 2 and configure the applicant profile. In this step, this is what the applicant's going to complete. And we'll set up some of the specifics on the different tabs in a later session. This session is focused on what tabs do you want to set up and what are some of the requirements of those tabs. Okay? So this is the actual application. If you notice where I'm hovering over my mouse, these are all of the tabs that you may include. Any tab may be eliminated just by unchecking this box. Except for the submit, we always need them to submit, so that one has to remain there. The tab display name, if you notice where I'm hovering over up here across the right-hand side of the page, that's what an applicant would see, but we could change how those are displayed. So for example, personal info, if I wanted to change the name from personal info to maybe demographics, then I can change the way that that's displayed to all applicants. I can also change the display order. And display order goes from left to right, left being number 1, the rightmost being number 9, and again, submit always has to be the last one. We want them to submit last thing. But I can move them left or right in order that the applicant would fill those tabs out. Now, we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about configuring each tab. So for example, let's start with the very top, introduction. If I click on configure beside of there, this is going to allow me to customize some text. So the introduction tab, once they've selected the job that they want to apply for, this is their very first impression of the application. So they've selected the job, now they're in. You're going to greet them with some text or maybe give them some more information about your application process or your employment screening process. This is information that's displayed to all applicants regardless of the job that they apply for. Right? This is an HTML text editor, so you can make items bold or underlined or certain colors or highlights. So I've got a standard paragraph here that we're going to put in, and I'm just going to click Save and move on. All right. The next thing is personal information. Let's configure the personal information tab. There are a few things that I can set up on this tab. The first thing up at the top, I have 3 different items that I may want to collect or show to an applicant. The first would be EEOC fields, such as gender and ethnicity. Those are obviously voluntary, so I can't require those, but the option here that I have is, do I want to ask for them, not make them required, or do I not even want to post them or present them to the applicant? The second thing is work authorization fields. This will give you three choices, and if you notice my mouse down here on the kind of page behind here, you have 3 choices on their authorization to work in the United States. And last is show account information to an applicant. If you have applicants that you think want to come back to the site and see the status of their application, or if they ever want to come back and create a profile and come back and apply for jobs in the future, then it's always good to show the account information so that they can create a profile, basically a username and password. And if you want that, then you need to check the box Show Account Information. And on this second step, which is their personal information, they will create a profile and enter a username and password for themselves. Under Custom Text, if I move my screen over, notice here in this kind of gray area that I'm hovering over with my mouse, that is usually where any custom text on any of the tabs that you can set up, that's where that'll be displayed, is at the top. So you notice here I've put some instructions or some information that I want the applicant to review. That's going to appear at the top of every tab. Okay. All right, so let's move on to configuring our third step, which is additional information and additional questions. Now, this is one of the most unique parts of the applicant process, is that you can customize as many questions as you want to ask applicants maybe specific questions either for that job, or you can ask specific questions to every applicant in your organization. This tab here and the configuring right here, the only thing that we're doing is putting custom information at the top. So maybe it's instructions, maybe it's just some more information that you want to give to the applicant. That's all that we're configuring on this screen. We'll talk in a later session about how you can add custom questions either to all applicants or to a specific job and how you can configure those questions. Okay. So let's just put some sample text in here. Let's just say maybe we would like to get to know you better. Okay. Don't forget, always save before you leave the screen. Okay. So now let's go to Skills. And let's configure our Skills tab. This is not where we're going to set up the skills. This is where we're going to configure what kind of skills we want to collect or what we want to require. So the very first thing at the top, you notice there's a checkbox. Do we want to require the applicant to select skills? One of the things that you'll find as we go through later sessions in setting the applicant piece up is that you can create categories and skills, such as maybe computer skills or technology skills, or maybe there are educational skills that they have. If you set those up, then you can require an applicant to tell what they have, what skills they have. So the very first thing is, do we want to require them to select their skills? If we do, then we're going to check that. The one thing to keep in mind and be careful of is that by requiring the applicant to select a skill, that means they have to select at least one. So if you have a very small list of skills and an applicant doesn't have any, then they will be unable to save their application. So for that reason, I'm going to uncheck the requirement and let them check all that apply. And if they have none, then that's okay. They can still save their application. If you do check that box, then the next box needs to be filled out. How many are you going to require them to complete? All right, so if I've required them to select skills, how many do I want to make them fill out? They can fill out more, but that's the minimum number. And then under custom text, this may be some information or, again, instructions that you want to provide to the applicant. Again, that can always be left blank if you'd like. All right, so again, let's save our work and move on to the next tab and configure the Education tab. On the Education tab, and again, this is for all applicants, not just for one specific job, we can configure how many years of education that we want the applicant to complete. So the second line down here, if education entries are required, how many must they put in? So in this example, I have the number 1, so I want at least one education record. And that's typically by default what we recommend. Everyone's going to have at least one. But you may want to be careful in getting into 2 and 3 because a lot of maybe just high school graduates are not going to have but one record that they can enter. Okay. All right, let's move on to work history. Work history is similar in education and what you require, although instead of records that you want them to enter, we're going to put the number of years of experience that we're going to require. And again, this is for all applicants. So the first thing that we do is we're going to check whether or not we're requiring the applicant to provide work experience. Again, by checking yes or no, that doesn't turn the tab on or off. That just says, do you want to make it mandatory that they complete that tab? So I have that checked right now, yes. They do have to put in work experience. They can't skip over it without it. And they have to put in at least 2 years of work history, and that picks up from the start and end date that they put in for their past employment. A couple other checkboxes down below there. Do we want to require the applicant to provide a reason for leaving the position? And do we want to require permission to contact the employer? Again, the caveat with that last one is if they say no, then they will not be able to continue through the application, so be careful on requiring that. Under custom text, again, same as before, you have an area at the top of this section to provide information or instructions on the applicant for completing this section. All right, let's move down to references and configure that tab. And again, one of the values of references is that the system can automatically email a reference if the applicant provides an email address, and we can provide a questionnaire to that reference that's customized to some of the questions that you ask, if you so choose. Here on this tab, though, is where we would set up how many do we want to require, if any. And again, if we don't require them, that's fine. They can still put them in. We're just not going to require them at this point. And last but not least is their resume. And notice I've also changed the name of this. Although the tab name is technically resume, I've changed it to documentation in case there may be more documents that I want to collect other than just the resume. So let's configure that. The only thing that we're going to configure here is text or information and instructions at the top of this page. It's very difficult to put a requirement because there's no way to know that they really did upload a resume. You only know if they uploaded a document. So for that case, we don't require anything. We just put custom instructions. CBIZ does recommend that you evaluate whether or not you want to have just documentation or resume uploads, just non-resume uploads, so they have to fill out the information, or both. It's always best practice to have both, but that is something that you could choose to do, and we do have several clients who will eliminate the resume because that makes for a lazy applicant when they're filling out their application. All right, so we've configured all of our tabs for an applicant. We haven't added a lot of detail behind them, which we'll get to in a later session, but we've now turned on all the tabs that we want to. Okay? And remember, if you want to turn a tab off, all you need to do is uncheck the box over here on Include. So now we're ready to move on to step 3, very simple step. This has your link to the recruiting portal. If you want to test it and just play around with it before it actually goes live, and as you're working through some of these training sessions, and you just want to kind of see what it looks like, then you can always click View Live from this, this menu item here. When you're done with it and you're ready to publish it and go live, hopefully you have an IT person, or if you want to, if you have another site that has technical help and they can add it for you, then you're going to want to send this link here because that is a link directly to your applicant tracking site. The most common and best practice is from your company's homepage. If you have a careers link or a learn more about employment at our organization, then when they click on that link, you will embed this link behind that. And if you have any questions on that, please don't hesitate to reach out to your account manager. Okay, so that concludes today's session of applicant tracking. This is part 1. Please let your account manager know if you have any questions on configuring your recruiting portal. The next session, we'll go into the more advanced settings of setting up the detail on each tab. Thank you.